Imagine waking up every morning to a high-pitched sound that never fades. For many, this is the reality of living with tinnitus. Lila, a young woman plagued by an unrelenting ringing in her ears, feels trapped in her own mind. But what if there was a way to find peace amidst the chaos? Join her as she seeks guidance from a wise figure known for his profound wisdom and unique perspective. The constant, unending sound echoed in Lila's ears, like a high-pitched whistle that never faded. It was there in the morning, during the day, and even when she tried to sleep. No one else could hear it, but for Lila, it was as if the noise had taken over her life. She felt trapped, desperate for silence, and afraid that it would never end. Every time she tried to ignore it, the ringing grew louder, like it was mocking her efforts to escape. One day, overwhelmed by frustration and exhaustion, she found herself in the forest, where she had heard whispers of a healer who might be able to help. Deep among the tall trees and dappled sunlight, she came across a clearing. And there, sitting comfortably on a soft patch of moss, was Mr. Miyagi, a wise, gentle figure radiating calmness. Mr. Miyagi was an unusual sight. He wore a simple kimono that flowed gently around him, embodying tranquility. His hair was neatly tied back, and his face, though weathered, exuded warmth and kindness. As Lila approached, he glanced up from a cup of steaming tea, his eyes filled with understanding. Without hesitation, Lila poured out her worries. "I have this ringing in my ears," she said, her voice trembling. "It's there all the time, and I can't get rid of it. I'm afraid it will never stop, and I don't know how much longer I can live like this." Mr. Miyagi listened carefully, nodding gently, his hands resting together in his lap. When she finished, he closed his eyes for a moment, as if savoring the silence around them before speaking. "Ah, the sound that follows you everywhere," he said softly, his voice calm and reassuring. "It's like carrying a song only you can hear, and yet it doesn't feel like a song, does it? More like a burden." Lila nodded, her eyes wide, desperate for an answer. "I've tried everything, but it won't go away. What can I do?" Mr. Miyagi took a slow sip of his tea, then set the cup down. "Once there was a river," he began. "A loud, rushing river that tumbled over rocks, making it difficult to hear anything else. It seemed chaotic, as if it would never calm down. But those who sat beside it, truly sat and listened, began to notice something special. They heard the rhythm, the flow, the quiet spaces between the splashes. The river was not just noise, it was a song." Lila frowned, trying to understand. "But this ringing isn't a song, it's just there." Mr. Miyagi smiled gently. "I know. It feels relentless, and it demands your attention. But what if, instead of trying to silence it, you could learn to listen differently? Like sitting by the river, what if you found a way to let the sound flow around you instead of fighting it?" He reached into a small pouch at his side and pulled out a smooth, cool stone. "Here," he said, placing it in her hand. "Close your eyes and hold this. Feel its weight, its texture. Breathe deeply and let your mind settle on the feeling of the stone instead of the sound." Lila hesitated but did as he instructed. As she focused on the coolness of the stone and the steady rise and fall of her breath, something unexpected happened. The ringing was still there, but it felt distant, less intrusive, almost like it was blending into the background. She opened her eyes, surprised. It's still there, but it doesn't feel so loud." Mr. Miyagi nodded, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "Sometimes, peace isn't about removing the noise, but about finding a way to let it coexist with everything else. The more you resist, the louder it feels. But when you stop fighting, when you let it be, it often fades into the background, like the river's song." As she stood to leave, Lila felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. "Thank you, Mr. Miyagi. I think I understand now." The wise figure picked up his cup, his eyes twinkling. Remember, my dear, sometimes it's not about making the noise go away. It's about finding harmony within it. Now off you go. And don't forget to breathe. And with that, he took another sip of his tea as the soft murmur of the forest surrounded them, as soothing as the silence that Lila had been seeking all along.